Hi guys, welcome to part 7 of this Angular 7 tutorial series. In this video we'll be migrating our straight Webpack Angular 7 application into an Angular CLI project. We won't be adding any new functionality to the application at all, so it's an optional video for people who prefer to develop using the Angular CLI. As usual, I've posted all of the instructions and steps that we'll be going through on my blog, and I'll be linking to in the video description. Okay, let's get started. So the first step that we have is to install the Angular CLI. The Angular CLI is installed with npm, so just open up a command window and type, I'll just copy so I don't have any typos, npm I is a shorthand for install, -g installs it globally, and @Angular is the namespace for Angular, and CLI is the CLI. The @7 here installs the version 7 of the CLI because that's the version of Angular we're developing with. If you prefer to use the latest version, 8 just came out recently, you can install without the @7 on the end, and that'll install Angular CLI version 8, and that should work fine as well. But just because the rest of the series is in Angular 7, I'll stick with that for the video. Yeah, so pasting that command there and install. Right, now you can check that the CLI was installed correctly by typing ng -version, without the minus, ng version, and enter. And it shows that we've got Angular CLI version 7.3.9 running. Next step is to create a new Angular CLI project. The way you do this is by running the ng new command and then passing the project name. For this we'll use Angular 7 tutorial without any dashes. For some reason the ng new command doesn't like dashes in project names. So back on the command line, we'll cd into our projects folder and paste the ng new Angular 7 tutorial command. For routing, we can select no because we've set up our routing ourselves already in our app. And you can use whichever style sheet language you prefer. I like using less, so I'll use less. Okay, once all that's done, we can open up the new project in Visual Studio Code. So let's cd into the new project, Angular 7 tutorial. Don't worry if it took a little while, a few minutes to run that command. It did for me as well. I just sped it up for the video. So type in code dot to open up Visual Studio Code with the new project. And there we have our blank Angular 7 CLI project with everything that it comes with. So it has a standard sort of boilerplate application in here, which we'll be replacing with our own app. I already have our original application open here as well. So this is our app that we've been developing through the series. So next we'll migrate that over to here before running it and testing it. So going on to our next step, let's copy the Angular tutorial app code into the CLI project. So first step is we literally just copy over the source app folder from our project over to replace the one in the CLI project. So that we can do that in Finder or in Windows Explorer if you're using Windows. So in our projects folder we've got both of our Webpack version of the app and our new CLI version. So if we go into the source folder, we can copy that, copy app, and then go back up to projects and delete app from here, and then paste in the app from our tutorial application. Okay, next up we replace the index file. So the index sits just in the source folder, so it's just above the app folder. So back into projects, Angular 7 tutorial, let's grab the index.html, and then back over to the CLI project and delete that there and paste the new one. Okay, next up, let's copy over our config variables. We only have the one for our API URL, which is used by our Angular services for connecting to the API. In CLI applications, we have a couple of environment config variables stored in source environments, environment.ts and environment.prod.ts for the different, depending on whether you're doing a prod or a standard build. In our Webpack version, we store that in the Webpack config file, so we'll be copying that over. So that's what the API URL is. I'll show you it in the actual application. So in our normal version, or our Webpack version rather, if we open up the Webpack config, we have our config object defined using the Webpack.define plugin. So we'll just copy the API URL out of there and switch over to the Angular CLI project in source.environments. First in the base environment file, paste that there, and then in the environment.prod file, paste that there. Okay, next step, we'll add a path alias for @environments into our TS config, and that'll allow us to import our environment config files using the alias like this, instead of having to use relative paths, which can get a bit ugly using .. depending on how far down the directory structure you're importing from. So this is how TS config file should look after our update. The new lines are 21 to 23, so we'll just copy that path alias there, and back in our CLI project, if we open up the root TS config file and just add that path there. So that maps, as you can see, the @environment/star to the source/environment/star folder. Okay, next step, we'll replace the parts of our code that use config.api URL at the moment. We'll replace that with environment.api URL, which is how you get config properties in Angular CLI. So first is the authentication service. So open up our auth service in the Angular CLI project. So under app, services, authentication service. And the first change, there's only a couple of lines that have changed. First one is we import our environment config object from our path alias/environment. So put that up there. And the second update is that we're changing, instead of using config.api URL, we're using environment.api URL. So you can see the red underline there because config doesn't exist in this project. Just paste that environment there. Okay, next we'll update the user service. So same thing in the user service, import environment and then replace config.api URL with environment.api URL for each of the API calls. So import environment and then replace each of those and save. Alright, now we're ready to start our app. So with an Angular CLI app, you use the ng serve command to start the application and the ---- open to launch it automatically in a browser. Instead of using, in the Webpack version of the app, we run npm start. So if we go back here, or to the terminal, and from within our Angular 7 tutorial folder, run the ng serve --open command. Okay, there you have it, our application running as normal. I'll just test that everything works. Okay, everything working as normal, just like it was with the other version. I won't go through the functionality as you've seen it all before. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. And if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to my channel below. Cheers.